Key West is the furthest drivable area of the Florida Keys, a group of islands that extend out of the southern portion of the state. The city has a long history as a U.S. port and a place for wreckers to make their living by salvaging the ships that wrecked on the shallow reefs surrounding the island. The drive to Key West from Miami is amazing, and I have another video on that, but this video is just a bunch of my favorite spots in Key West for activities, adventures, and food. It's a great place for a long weekend or to spend a week if you have the time. Check it out, let me know what I left off in the comments, and let's jump into the list. My first recommendation is the Key West Lighthouse. The Key West Lighthouse has been in the city for over 150 years. Since that time, it's been used as a navigational resource for ships at sea and is now a popular tourist attraction. You can pay to climb to the top of the lighthouse, but note that it's not for those who are afraid of heights. The iron spiral staircase is pretty unique to walk up, and when you get to the top, the views are stunning all over the city. One of the highlights is being able to see the old Hemingway house from the top, which is right across the street. I spent a good amount of time up here, but my dad didn't want to go after seeing the stairs. There's also a small museum next door which has history on the area and the lighthouse, making it a great spot if you're into the history of Key West. My next recommendation is Ernest Hemingway's home and museum. Next to the lighthouse is the city's most popular attraction, the Hemingway Museum. This museum is inside of what was once the author's home. The author supposedly loved the city and spent many nights here having drinks at Sloppy Joe's and mornings writing in the small room near the pool. Some of his most famous works were written here, like The Snows of Kilimanjaro. The house also has many six-toed cats, a pool with a fun backstory, and multiple tours during the day. I didn't know much about its history before I came, but I loved taking the tour and hearing all of the stories about Hemingway's life. If you're a fan of his, then this is something you must do, and even if you're not, you'll probably still enjoy it while in Key West. Next up is a visit to the southernmost point. The southernmost point is something that pretty much every Key West tourist visits. It's a famous place for a photo, and there's pretty much always a line. It's fun to be able to see though, and to say that you were at the southernmost point in the lower 48 United States. It is a little funny that there's a house and a beach that seem more southern than this point, but I waited for my photo on my visit as well. Next up, I recommend you rent scooters. If you're visiting Key West with a car, you're gonna have a tough time. The city has very limited and expensive parking, making it hard and sometimes frustrating to get around. I recommend you rent scooters, which doubles as a fun way to get around and an easy way to explore the city. There's scooter parking all over Key West, making it a very efficient way to get around. My dad and I rented scooters for an entire day, and we were actually bummed when we had to turn them back in because we had so much fun with them. The price is not bad either, as you can usually find scooters for rent for $30 to $50 for an entire day if you book them in advance. Plus, it allows you to get to most all of these recommendations in one day. Next up is the Shipwreck Museum. The Shipwreck Museum is located in Mallory Square, and it's small but really amazing. It's probably my favorite museum in the city, and it's a great example of how well put together museum exhibits can be. This place is beautiful and has so much information about Key West shipwrecks, the wreckers that salvaged them, and how the city grew on this unique industry. Plus, you can also walk to the top of the observation tower, which is mounted on top of the museum. This tower sits at about the same height as the lighthouse and allows you to look down on Mallory Square and the rest of the city. It's a great vantage point to have included with the museum, and be sure to check it out if you're interested in the wrecker history. Next up is a visit to Fort Zachary Taylor State Park. Fort Zachary Taylor is the sister fort of the dry Tortugas, which we'll talk about later, but it's much easier to access if you're looking for military history while in Key West. The fort is preserved in a lush forest inside of the state park, and you can visit both the fort and the amazing beach while you're at the park. The fort has been well preserved and it's pretty fun to explore. There's a lot of information on the history to read about here, and beautiful views when you make it to the second story of the fort. It's a great spot to spend some time while in Key West, and if the weather is good, bring your swimsuit and snorkel gear and head over to the beach to swim as well. Next up is the Butterfly and Nature Conservatory. The Butterfly Conservatory is a place to visit for the entire family while in Key West. This building houses a magical world where butterflies flutter around you, flamingos crackle, and small birds hop around on the ground or fly above you. There's only one main area, but you can take your time walking up and down the short path and just soak in the fun experience. I saw so many butterflies while I was there, and I could easily see this being a top recommendation for families in Key West. They also have a gift shop here as well with all sorts of butterfly related items if you're interested in that. Next up is a visit to Truman's Little White House. Truman's little White House was his home away from home while he served as the president. The house is still maintained and owned by the government, so you can't take photos if you go on the tour, but you can walk around and learn all about the house and its history. Even if you don't do the tour, it's worth going as you can walk the grounds, go in the small shop, and see the museum that they have that's free to the public. It's a unique and historic spot in Key West that's worth a visit. My next recommendation is Duval Street. Duval Street is the main downtown area of Key West and the nightlife capital of the city. It's home to amazing restaurants and crazy bars, and something you should spend an hour walking to see even if you don't want to partake in either. While you're there, you can visit Sloppy Joe's or Captain Tony's to have a drink where Hemingway did, or you can have a margarita at the original Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. Whatever you're feeling, they probably have it on Duval Street, and it's definitely fun to walk around, especially at night. Next up, I recommend taking in a sunset at Mallory Square. In Key West, watching the sunset from Mallory Square is a bucket list item for many people. They call it a sunset celebration here, and if the clouds aren't blocking the sun, then hordes of people descend on the docks behind Mallory Square to enjoy the sunset together. Before I went, I didn't realize how fun this could be. Sitting with hundreds of people who are all there to just enjoy the experience and the setting sun together is pretty special. Add to that the fact that Key West sunsets are amazing, and you have something that every Key West visitor must experience while in the city. My next recommendation is Key West's first legal distillery. The Caribbean is known for its rum, and Key West has multiple distilleries making the spirit. Key West's first legal distillery is located right near the harbor and has a small tasting room with a fun atmosphere. They have a dozen different rums you can try, with many flavored ones like key lime pie and of course normal rums as well. Some of their barrels are given a salt wash where they're dropped in the ocean before the rum sits in them. If you like rum, it's a fun spot to try it in the city. My next recommendation is the Cuban Coffee Queen. No trip to the city is complete without a visit to the Cuban Coffee Queen. This coffee shop is quintessential Key West spot. It's home to the famous Key West mural that you've seen in many photos, and it makes a mean cafe con leche one of the best I've had in the area. I especially like that they have a half sandwich and a coffee for $8, which is a good way to start your day in a tourist city that's pretty expensive. I always go multiple times on every visit to Key West. My next recommendation is to get a slice of key lime pie. While the original recipe and the history of who made the original key lime pie is hotly debated, one thing is for sure, key lime pie is incredible in Key West. My dad and I tried the top 3 spots and all of them were great. You can even get key lime pie dipped in chocolate if you want something a little bit more decadent. Plus, everything is key lime in the city, from the rum to the donuts. If you like key lime, you'll be at home here and should try multiple takes on the pie while in the city. Be sure to know what your favorite spot for key lime pie was in the comments if you go. My last recommendation in Key West is a visit to Dry Tortugas National Park. Dry Tortugas National Park is an experience that you will never forget and a full-day adventure in Key West. In order to get there, you have to take a seaplane or a 2.5-hour boat ride to the island. Once you're there, you can explore the fort from the 1800s or snorkel in the clear water. I love visiting national parks, so this was already high on my list, but I can easily say that it lived up to my expectations and was an amazing adventure while in the city. I'll post a link to my video on the park in the description. You definitely do need to have a full day to explore this national park, so don't do it if you don't have the time. So there you have it, some of my favorite spots in Key West. Let me know what I left off in the comments, and we will see you on the next video.